Welcome to today's presentation on Stake Your Claim, Discovery of Hard Minerals on Federal Land. Before we begin, I heard a funny joke this weekend. I'd like to share it with you. You won't hear any laughter after the joke because I don't have the laugh track set up, but I'm just going to imagine in my mind that y'all are laughing hilariously on your side. So let's see, George went to heaven, and St. Peter met him at the pearly gates, and he said, "George, I'm so happy for you to be here." He said, "I'm so glad you're up here." He says, "But I can't let you in." And George said, "Well, why not?" And St. Peter said, "Well, you can't just get into heaven. You got to pass a test." And so George says, "Well, what's the test?" And St. Peter said, "How do you spell love?" And George said, "Well, that's easy. Love." And so St. Peter let him into the pearly gates, let him into the gates of heaven. And then a couple of weeks later, St. Peter came to George and he said, "Hey, George, can you watch the front gate? I got some errands I got to run for the boss." And George says, "Oh, sure, sure." So George goes to the pearly gates, and here comes his wife. And he says, "Marie, you were fine when I left you a couple of weeks ago. What are you doing here?" And she said, "Yeah, I got sick and I ended up in the hospital." And he says, "Well, I can't let you into heaven." She says, "What do you mean you can't let me into heaven?" So, "Well, you got to take a test to get into heaven." She says, "Okay, what's the test?" And he says, "How do you spell Czechoslovakia?" All right, so now we're doing Stake Your Claim. Looks like I'm getting some good feedback on that. You don't like that joke. Okay, so let's delve into the heart of staking your claim, the discovery of hard minerals on federal land. So to begin with, I'm going to give you a little bit of a history. No surprise to anybody here that I'm going to give you some history. And it's sort of about the history of mining law in the United States, beginning with the California Gold Rush. And then we'll look at the mining law of 1872. We'll look at different types of what are considered valuable minerals and then how minerals are classified. And then we'll go through the actual process of staking a claim, also known as patenting a claim. In other words, if you follow these steps, you can go out on federal land and make a mark of where you want to mine, and you can start mining there as long as you pay this very small fee. I forget what it was, but a really small fee, and file these certain documents. And then we'll wrap up with a conclusion and any questions that you might have. So let's begin with the California Gold Rush. Okay, as many of you may remember, rumors of gold in California existed way before there was an ever a gold rush. But the actual gold rush didn't begin until January the 4th, 1848, when a man named James Marshall, who was building a sawmill for John Sutter in California, picked up a piece of metal from the ground that looked like gold. And when they tested it, they confirmed that it was, in fact, gold. Now, although Sutter and Marshall asked everyone to keep this quiet, word got out, and by late 1848, word had spread just through the whole country. Then on December 5th, 1848, President James Polk confirmed these accounts of gold to Congress, and the discovery became national news. So by 1849, the gold rush was on, not only for the people in the United States, but for people all over the world. There were a lot of prospectors that came from Europe, from China, from Mexico, and they were all seeking our gold, is what Americans said at the time. They were rushing to California. And people had this gold fever because they all wanted to strike it rich. And so I know you've heard of Sutter's Mill. That's where the gold was discovered. That was John Sutter's place. And there was actually gold fever. So gold fever, had seekers arriving, and what they thought they would find was they thought they would find just rivers full of gold. Instead, they had to have this process where they were rivers full of gold, or that the gold would even be just laying on the street. Instead, what they found was they had to actually mine for it. And by mining, we meant they have to get a pan and swirl it around and see what remained at the bottom of it. Now, remember that California didn't become a state until after the gold rush. The gold rush was in 1848, and California didn't become a state until 1850. And what had happened was there was a lot of crooks and bandits and claim jumpers, they were called, professional gamblers, and those kind of people that came to take advantage of the people. And the reason California became a state was because there were no laws in place. So anyone who found gold was quickly surrounded by other prospectors. And so there had to be claim laws. And in some camps, a claim was on a 10 square foot, and each person was allowed one claim. So claims officers would patrol the mines and settle the dispute. Now, taking someone else's claim is also known as claim jumping. And so what swindlers would do is they would salt the ground, and they would scatter a little bit of gold around and then sell the land for lots of money. Of course, there was a lot of violence and crime, and there was a lot of problems with law and order. So that is the California gold rush, which ended in 1859. So after 1859, silver was discovered. The amount of gold was becoming scarce, and right about that time, there was a gold rush in Nevada, but not gold, for silver. And this is called the Comstock Lode. And we'll talk about lode claims and placer claims, but this is where the term lode comes from. Now, this was the first major U.S. discovery of silver, and it was located under Virginia City, Nevada. So they had to figure out, all right, now here's two cases where we've had some kind of a mining occur, and we don't have any laws in place. So in 1872, Congress established the Mining Law of 1872, and it was designed to address all these issues that arose as a result of the California and Comstock Lode gold and silver rushes. So let's take a look at the actual act itself. And what it says is that all valuable mineral deposits in lands belonging to the United States, okay, so this is lands that are owned by the federal government, not lands owned by private citizens, are free and open to exploration. Free and open to exploration. So that means anyone, well, it's qualified, but any U.S. citizen can go onto federal land and can look for gold or look for silver or look for copper or look for any kind of hard mineral that's in the ground. And remember, it says the word for free. And that is true. There is a small fine that you have to pay, but for the most part, this is free to do. Anybody can go out and do this. Now, they did further classify what is a valuable mineral. Remember, it says all valuable minerals deposits. So what is a valuable minerals? And they came up with what's called the prudent man rule and the marketability rule. And the question is, are these, would a prudent man consider what's on the ground to be a valuable mineral? And is that mineral marketable? If it meets both of these tests, then it will be considered all valuable mineral. Now that seems kind of obvious, but you'll see there's things like, when we're talking about oil and gas law, for example, and someone owns the surface and someone owns the minerals. Court cases have said that water is not considered a valuable mineral. Water is not a mineral. So even though it occurs on the land, because it's not a mineral, no oil and gas lease or no conveyance of minerals will convey the water that's on the surface. You can convey the whole surface, but you can't take the minerals. You can take the minerals, but not if there's any water. So that's one, advantage that surface owners do have, is that if the oil and gas company want to use the water that's on the ground, on the surface, they have to get permission from the surface owner to do that. So that's the definition of all valuable mineral deposits in lands belonging to the U.S. are free and open. Now, there's some limitations on this, and the first one is that it's limited to U.S. citizens. All right. Remember in 1842, I'm forgetting my dates, that's terrible for a history major. in 1872, they said one of the things that was happening in the California gold rush was that people from other countries were coming. So people from China, people from Mexico, people from Europe. Now this law, because as a result of that, we're saying it's limited to U.S. citizens or those that are in the process of becoming U.S. citizens. It's also limited to what we call locatable minerals. Locatable minerals. These are minerals that are available by staking a claim, and they include precious and base metals. So we're going to look at locatable minerals and leasable minerals. So if we're talking about an oil and gas lease, like oil and gas law, the mining law of 1872 is not going to apply. This is for hard minerals, either locatable or available for leasing. All right, so let's then look at this mining claim. So this is locatable minerals. Locatable minerals. And so these are the ones that are included in the Mining Act of 1872. So if it's locatable, that is any one of these elements can be mined for free, you know, small fine. I'm going to show you that in a minute. But and these are uranium, silver, gold, sulfur, copper, gems, lead, and zinc. Now, if you're studying for the American Association of Professional Landmen exam, I kind of have a little acronym here for you. This is how I passed law school. I had tons of little acronyms. So it's that the United States Geological Society, okay, USGS, can go lift zinc. And that is US, uranium and silver, GS, gold and sulfur, CAN, copper, gems, G, L for lift is lead, and then Z is for zinc. Now, I tried to also kind of color coordinate this. So for the most part, when we're talking about locatable minerals, they are either a grayish color or a goldish color or a gem, like sapphire or diamonds or that kind of thing. So hopefully that's going to help you remember. Uranium, silver, gold, sulfur, and then can go lift zinc, copper, gems, lead, and zinc. I'm trying to remember that because we have some questions at the back that's in the study guide of your text, and one of them is what are the locatable minerals. So I'm trying to remember. So I'm trying to give you like a little hint, like think about these as the gold and silver ones. Don't, you know, gems, of course, those are different colors, but that's the only one that is different. So those are called locatable minerals under the Mineral Act of 1872. The other kind of mineral that's classified under this Mining Act of 1872 is what we call leasable minerals. Leasable minerals. Now these were amended by certain amendments. The Leasing Act of 1920 was then amended in 1940, amended again in 1973, and amended again in 1987. And these are lands that are available for leasing, not locatable. So if it's available for leasing, well, we know it's things like oil and gas and oil shale, okay? And so my mnemonic for leasable is gas coupe. And gas coupe stands for, oh, another hint I'm giving you is these are all sort of black and white. You know, these are all, I got salt and pepper here. So if you're going to think in color, you know, think about salt and pepper. Now the first one is geothermal, which, you know, I probably should have put red here like I did for the gem. But it's the only one that's a different color. In the other category, the gems are the missing the different color. So this stands for geothermal, which is heat, asphalt, sodium, coal, oil and gas, oil shale, OO, phosphate, and potassium, PP. So asphalt, coal, oil and gas, geothermal, asphalt, sodium, coal, oil and gas, oil shale, those are all known as leasable minerals. So again, we're using kind of a color coding system here. that is for leasing purposes. So if if it's a black or white, like a salt and pepper type, that'll be your clue that this is a leasable. Okay, so that is lands that is available for leasable. There's another kind of classification of minerals, and that is what's called saleable minerals. So saleable minerals are distinguished from leasable minerals because you can actually purchase it from the United States. So let's look at what some of these saleable minerals are. And so this is under the Mineral Acts of 1985. They further classified minerals as saleable. These are minerals that are available for purchase from the United States. So you can purchase from the United States these different minerals. And it's things like pumice, petrified wood, sand, stone, and gravel. Okay, so there's a question whether that really is or is not considered minerals. But because you can sell it under the Mineral Act of 1955, they did classify it as a mineral, but it's not a mineral that you can stake a claim on, and it's not a mineral that you can lease. So they came up with this different category where you could purchase these different minerals. And most of these are road building materials. So that's why I have a road here. And they are pumice, petrified wood, sand, stone, and gravel. So that's PPSSG. And just in your mind, you're going to picture a road, like a highway. And that's going to be for pumice, petrified wood, sand, stone, and gravel. Okay? All right. So now that we know the distinctions between locatable minerals, leasable minerals, and saleable minerals, let's look at the actual process of staking a claim on federal land. So once a mineral deposit has been discovered and the land ownership has been verified and it's been determined that the land isn't already claimed, a prospector can locate, that is, stake, a claim. So when he stakes a claim on federal lands, there's location posts or rock monuments are placed at each corner. So, first of all, if you want to stake a claim, if you want to have a patent from the U.S. government on land, you have to have a discovery on that land. You have to be able to prove, I found gold here. I found sulfur here. Okay, so we can't just go out onto federal land and you and I just put some, set up some rocks in the shape of a rectangle and say, oh, this is our federal mining claim. No, it requires that you actually have a discovery first, and then you put those markers on the ground, and I'll show you a picture of that in a bit. And then you file what's called a location notice. Now, this is what you file with the federal government, and it gives you the name of the locator. So if you're the one that found the minerals, it would be in your name, the name of the claim or the property, and then the type of claim, a lode claim, a placer claim, or a tunnel mill. And we'll go through these different types of claims in a minute. And then what is the acreage claimed? What is the acreage amount, and what is the property description? So once you have all these elements, you can file this federal mining claim. And this is what you would put in one of the, and the federal government's going to give you its own serial number. So this is what you would put on a post in the ground where you're staking your claim. You would post this federal mining claim to protect your claim. Now this, remember, this is for locatable minerals. Okay, this is the USGSS. So uranium, silver, gold, sulfur, copper, lead, and zinc. What's that G for? Gems. Okay. So that's what this applies for. You can get a federal mining claim for any of these types of minerals, any of these locatable minerals. Now, once you have that record location notice, you have 90 days to file that with the BLM. So you file that with the BLM, and then you pay your cost. Now, remember I told you that this was free. and it is for the most part, but you do have to pay a service charge to the Bureau of Land Management. You have to pay $34 for a location fee, and then every year you have to make a payment to the federal government of $140. So that when you stake your claim, you're paying for the right to dig for gold or sulfur or copper or gems, the right to dig for those for less than $200 a year. So that's pretty impressive. So if you want to maintain that claim, here's the formula. You have to maintain it, and you have to file annually, and you pay this $140 annual maintenance fee. That is a valid claim. So initially, the total cost for you to file the claim is going to be $189, but every year it's only going to be $140 that you have as long as you keep up with the claim. You can't abandon the claim. Okay, so when we're talking about maintaining this claim, we're looking at what's called the doctrine of pedis possessio. So under the doctrine of pedis possessio, that is foot possession, after a claim is located and all the papers are filed and the payments are made, the mining claim is valid, and it protects the claimant from claim jumpers who may start prospecting on their claim. The owner has the right to possess that land if he continues to pursue the claim with reasonable diligence. And if he does that, he gains all rights against everyone else except the Bureau of Land Management. Now, he's got to reasonably work the claim. That's a key element. And then once you have the claim, the mining claim is considered real property, similar to an easement where the U.S. holds the ultimate title until a mineral patent is issued. This means they can be bought, sold, transferred, leased, rented, willed, or inherited. So these claimants' rights, once you have a claim, are considered real property. So that's how you get a claim. You file a claim. You put this, you pay that little bit of money, $189, and you put that marker, you file it with the BLM, and you put that marker on your land. But that only gives you the right to dig for it. But if you want to be the sole owner, that is, you get a patent from the U.S. government, that means that patent is owned against everyone, including the federal government. So, and then when you're dealing with, oil and gas, the claimant has the right to use so much of the surface of the claim as is reasonably necessary for mining and drilling purposes, including things like access across federally managed surface, use of so much of the timber that they need, and then construction of fences and those kind of things. So also allowed are temporary and permanent structures for storing the equipment, housing for full-time employees, and testing and processing facilities. So you can actually get a claim, an actual patent against the U.S., and we'll talk about how you get these types of patents. But the first thing I want to do next is to talk to you about the distinction between the different types of claims. When we're talking about staking a claim, there's different types, and so you have to apply for the right type of claim depending on what the minerals are that you're dealing with. So these types of claims are called the lode claim, the placer claim, the tunnel claim, and the mill site claim. Now, let's start with the lode claim. The lode is a fissure in a rock formation that's filled with metallic ore. So it's things like gold, silver. It's the actual vein of silver running through the mountain. And in order to mine for a lode claim, you have to use a pick. Okay, so that's how you sort of distinguish it from, any other kind of claim. So that is the lode. And you may have heard the term mother lode. We hit the mother lode. This is where that term comes from, because the gold or silver is in the mountain, and as it rains and snows and all that kind of precipitation occurs, little pieces of the gold or silver will start going down into the streams, and once it gets into the stream, that is a placer claim. So the placer claim is all the little bits of gold or silver that's coming from the mountain as a result of can't say that word, precipitation, or, rock sliding or any of that kind of thing. So when you're talking about the gold that's in the river, and you say, well, where is the source of that gold? The source of that gold is in the mountain, and that is called a lode or a mother lode. It's the mother of the gold flecks that are going into the river. So that's where we get the expression, he hit the mother lode. He hit the main source. All my life I've thought that was L-O-A-D. So it wasn't until I was researching for this presentation that I realized it was L-O-D-E, and the expression actually made sense to me. So that's a lode claim, and that's a placer claim. Now let's look at, and the tools that you use for a placer claim is a pan, okay, because you're panning for gold. So I'm hoping these will give you some little clues about what each is. Now another kind of claim is a tunnel that is run to develop a vein or a lode. So they might be digging into the mountain to get to the source of the gold or the silver, and they will need to have a tunnel, and that's called a tunnel claim. And then there's another kind of claim if you're type of claim if you're processing for ore, or you're dumping waste or anything, or there's some kind of processing that you need to do to your mining. You can set up a mill site, which is kind of like in oil and gas, it would be like the separator and tanks and all those kinds of things that you use to process the separator to process the oil and gas on the ground. So lode, just remember mother lode. Placer, that's the place where the lode goes. And then a tunnel claim and a mill site claim. And remember again, we're only talking about these minerals here when we're talking about staking a claim. All right, so as an example, here's a lode claim. All right, here is actual gold in the mountain, okay? And in order to get that gold, this is a mother lode, in order to get that gold out, you're going to use a pick, and you're going to have to pick out that gold. So that's called a lode claim. A placer claim is what we think of as the old-time prospector in, the gold rush. Those are prospectors that are on their haunches, and they've got a pan with it's just a regular pan, and they dip it into the water, and they swirl it and swirl it and swirl it, and then they see what falls to the bottom, little bitty flecks of gold. And so that's the difference between a lode claim and a placer claim. So now, let's say that we want to stake a claim on a lode claim. Here's what the law is for lode claims, and then what we'll look at the law is for placer claims. So you are on the ground, on federal ground. You find a mountain where there's gold, and you want to stake your claim. So here's what you do. First of all, you file your notice, okay? And then if you want to get a patent, then you need to put corner markers, the maximum size that you can have, by the way. So you're on that mountain, the maximum size that you can have is 1,500 feet by 600 feet. So it's a long rectangle, and that's what you're limited to. You can only have those parameters. Now then on each of the corners, you're going to put some kind of a designation. It could be stone like this. I see this a lot in Texas. They make these little mounds of rocks. Or it could be an actual post, a 3.5-foot post, or 3.5-inch post, or a 2-inch, I'm going to say these are feet, 2-foot metal post. Okay, just something in each of the corners that designates that this is the boundaries of somebody's claim. So the staking procedure is those setting up the monuments, those posts in the ground or the rocks in the ground. Now in the northeast corner of the claim, which would be over here, that's where you have to put your notice of claim, and that's known as the number 1 corner. And that's where the claimant will place his location notice. So the 3 additional monuments at each of the mining corners must be set, and then they're numbered clockwise. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4 marker. Now, so copies of the claim has to be filed in the local offices of the land managers and all the filing fees. We already covered that. And it's got to be done within 45 days of staking. And then you got to pay all your fees, which we talked about. And any failure of any of these, kind of like in the failing of any of the delay rental issues, and the claim cannot be restaked by the original locator or a successor in interest like an heir for 1 year from the date of abandonment. So if you abandon it, it's open for 1 year to anyone else that wants to come on the land. So you got to continuously work these. You got to continue to work. That's the secret for maintaining them. Pay your annual fee and continue to work. So that is the load claim. Now let's look at the placer claim. Now remember, the placer is things like that you're going to use a pan for. So what the prospectors do. How do the prospectors stake their claim? Well, it can be no more than 20 acres. That's a maximum size. And you really don't need any visible markers. You just need to say the section, township, and range, east half, the northeast of the Mount Diablo base meridian. And so you can also, add up these locator claims. I'm sorry, these placer claims. So you can have this, and then you can own another one right next to it, and you can go all the way up to 40 acres. So that's how you would do a placer claim. Same process as the one before, but there's no staking that's required on the ground. Filing it in the courthouse is sufficient. Now, how you would enforce that claim, I don't know. You may have to go to the BLM and say, we've got someone that's trying to dig on my land, and they would come out and enforce it, possibly with even a law enforcement officer, because it is considered real property. Okay, so then the tunnel claim, that's obvious. The tunnel size is 20 acres, and so that's the maximum size. There's no minimum size. That's to get to the actual vein. And the tunnel usually runs along the vein or the fissure. And this is really more of a right-of-way or an easement, because they're never actually going to own the land that's under the tunnel. But it's you have to have 2 stakes that are placed up to 3,000 feet apart to stake a claim for a tunnel. Okay, and then the last one is the mill claim. All right, so this is where we're usually drilling for things like copper in this case. This is a copper project, chloride copper project. This is an estimated 27 million pounds of copper in Kingman, Arizona. That's July 6, 2011. So if you've actually found, for example, copper, in this situation, a locatable mineral, and you need to process it, you can set up your facilities on the ground by using a mill site claim. We need this to process the hard mineral that's coming out of the ground. So that's a mill site claim, and the max that you can have there is 5 acres, which is a lot of acres, for equipment. All right. So now if you want to patent the claim, that is, you want to own the patent, you want to own the land in fee simple. So I've been watching Shark Week almost every day now. And that's what they're talking about, is patenting your invention. That means you are the only one that has the right to make that invention, to make and sell that particular product. Well, the same thing with patenting a claim. If you can patent the claim, you become the sole owner of that particular claim. And the steps are that you have to survey the claim. Oh, and once it's patented, it's not even subject to any annual fees or any other requirements under the Mining Law Act. So the impact is that you own the land in fee simple. So the first thing he needs to do is he needs to survey the claim. That means he has to hire a registered land surveyor to give the exact location. And then you have to post a notice of intent in a newspaper. Okay? This is the law today. They don't talk about internet. Can't put it on Craigslist. You've got to publish it in the newspaper, telling everyone this person is staking a claim. And then you pay, and that gives people that have already owned the claim an opportunity to defend their claim. And then you pay a one-time fee of $250 to the BLM, showing your evidence of title. And then you have to prove that it's marketable or economic. That is, you have to have an actual discovery on it. And then you provide proof to the BLM that there was that you've spent $500 on improvements, and that's what allows you to continue your patent. So you have to have spent at least $500 in order to patent the claim. So that is how you own land in fee simple. All right, so these are questions from the AAPL guide, the study guide, and I thought we'd just go over them because they're not in your, the answers are not in the text. So what page is this on? I didn't put the page number. It's at the back of the chapter for hard minerals. So the first question is, what minerals may be obtained on federal public domain or acquired lands through sales by government, which are called saleable minerals? Okay, these are things that are sold. So right away in your mind should pop up a picture of a highway, and you know that these are road materials. So they are things like pumice, petrified wood, sand. Help me out here. What's the next one? Someone send it to me. Sand. And I know the last one's gravel. What's that second S for? Oh, stone. We should have known that. Okay, so pumice, petrified wood, sand, stone. It'll be easier to remember next time because we'll say sandstone. And then G is for gravel. So those are considered saleable minerals. The next question says, what are leasable minerals that may be obtained from the federal government? And when you think of leasable, you're going to think oil and gas because we're in the oil and gas business. And then what should pop into your mind is that oil is black. So these are kind of the black and white minerals that are under the earth that are leasable. And they're things like geothermal. That was the only one that wasn't black and white. Asphalt, sodium, coal, oil and gas, oil shale, phosphates, and potassium. Okay, the next one says, how may locatable minerals on federal acquired lands be obtained from the government? And this is what the AAPL guide said. It says, through prospecting, permits that can eventuate leases. Well, no, if they're locatable, that's never going to be a leasable mineral. So I think they're incorrect there. Locatable minerals are never going to be leasable minerals. The only leasable minerals are these, the salt and pepper one. So I think they messed up here, and I think the actual answer is on question number 7, and it walks you through the steps of how to obtain a claim. And then it says, what type of deposits of minerals are located by lode claims? So these are from the mountains. They are the consolidated veins of gold. Remember, I showed you what you need to do. That is a tool or a pick. And then what type of deposits of minerals are located by placer claims? Remember, this is where you use the pan. So those are unconsolidated minerals found in the river bed. They're loose, unconsolidated minerals, and you actually pan for those. And then it says, what are the steps necessary to validly locate a lode or placer claim? Well, first you have to have an actual discovery. And then you can stake the claim. Then you can file a location certificate with the BLM, and then you post that location certificate on the claim. Remember, on the number 1 corner. Does an explorer acquire any rights to a lode or placer claim before an economic discovery of valuable minerals is made on the claim? Yes, the answer is, even though it's not real property yet, the explorer has the right to exclusive occupancy of the claim for exploration purposes under the doctrine of pedis possessio. Okay, so even though there's not a discovery yet, that's where you have your location claim that under the doctrine of pedis possessio, that you are the only one that has the right to walk on that land, if you will. Now, when there is an actual discovery, that's when you can actually patent it. But first you get a location lode, and then once you actually make a discovery, then you're going to file for a patent from the government. So page 154 says, after locating a claim and filing the required papers and payment of all fees, a mining claim is valid. So now this is just a claim, and protects the owner against all third-party claimants under this doctrine of pedis possessio. An owner can possess against all others, except for the BLM. Okay, so that's a location claim. Once there's an actual discovery, that's when you file for your patent, and then you possess against everybody, including the United States. Next question, what is the maximum size of a lode claim? Remember, that's the gold in the mountain, and it's 600 by 1,500 feet. What is the area of a maximum size lode claim? Oh, this should be acres. Acres of a maximum size, and that's 20.66 acres. Very specific number there. What is the minimum size of the lode claim? There's really no minimum size. It's a maximum of 20 acres. And then it says if a lode claim has a location certificate, describes the claim as being 600 feet by 1,500 feet, and the claim staked on the ground is only 500 by 1,300 feet, what is the actual claim? And according to the AAPL, it's what's on the ground. So if there's a distinction between the document that was filed, the claim location certificate, and the actual land owned, what is owned is the stakes on the ground. The measurement of the stakes of the ground control, not what you put on that certificate. What is the maximum size of a placer claim located by one individual or one corporation? That's 20 acres. What is the maximum size of a placer claim located by an association of individuals? So you can have a placer claim and different companies can join together and make a huge, site. So all those can each combine their own 20 acres up to 8 claims. And so that would mean if you had different owners that joined their claims together, those companies would own 160 acres, kind of like a joint operating agreement, but you're combining all your claims, your placer claims. Can claims be validly located on federally owned minerals where the surface of the land was previously conveyed by the government? And I do not have an answer to this question. I could not find it in the book anywhere. Can claims be validly located on federally owned minerals where the surface of the land was previously conveyed by the government? I don't know. If anybody can find that, I would appreciate it. Now, if rival claims overlap, which claim will prevail in the overlap area? And, of course, the first one that did it, just like recording laws. The first one to record is the first one that owns it. Are there rental, royalty, work obligations, or other requirements for maintaining an unpatented lode or an unpatented lode? Why do I have that twice? Yeah, and you have to continuously, what's it called? Continuously work it and pay this annual fee that's due September 1st of every year of $140. So those are the answers to the questions in the back of your book. They may or may not be on the test. But we started with an introduction, and we talked about the history of the mineral law of 1872 and how it sort of came about was with the discovery of gold in California by John Marshall at Sutter's Mill. And, they tried to keep it quiet, but, eventually word got out, and then ultimately James Polk even confirmed that there was gold, and that set up the gold rush. And as a result, there was a lot of unsavory characters that would go there and try to claim jump or steal other people's claims. There were a lot of swindlers and thieves and crooks that were out there trying to swindle the prospectors. And then there were also, people from different nationalities, which I know sounds kind of racist today, but, they were so upset that people came from other countries to claim our gold. And it's not, you have to be a U.S. citizen. You have to be on your way to U.S. citizenship. So you can't just, fly over from Paris, France, and come dig for oil, gold, and then fly back to France, and you never really lived here or wanted to become a citizen. So you stake that claim with a BLM. There's a whole process for that. And so there's a process to stake a claim. The BLM process, that's the paperwork side of it, what documents you need to file. And then there's also a process on the ground, how big it can be, what the markers need to be, what the size of it is, those kinds of things. And then when you actually stake a claim, when there's actually a discovery, then you can apply to the U.S. government to patent that claim. And then you become the owner of that claim against everyone else, even the United States. Just like, on Shark Week, you have a patent. That means only you can use it. And then that patent becomes real property. I think I showed you let me see. I didn't mention it when we looked at it, but it's kind of an interesting. Here, WWW Silverton Land Company. Patented mining claims listed for sale by their owners. So once you have a patent, it becomes real property. And you can buy it, sell it, convey it, mortgage it, grant it to your heirs. So that's the important thing to remember is once you patent that claim, you own it outright. And that wraps up this presentation on hard minerals. Are there any questions on this topic? All right, so everybody's ready to go out and patent a claim, right? Yeah, because it's so easy to do. Any questions at all? Okay, well, if there's no questions, I'll go ahead and end the webinar. I hope you all have a great day today. Next week is the test, so be prepared for that. And then some of your assignments are due. I'm sorry I don't have the dates in front of me, but you should be working those. All right, y'all have a great day and a great weekend. We'll see you next time.